3D print license takedown procedure. Now, the correct procedure is not just to complain, it's to actually have some basis. And the basis that really is the best is to do a search and find the original. So you actually have the genuine originals thing license number, upload date of creation, and the link to that page showing that actual genuine original thing. And how to find things as far as 3D print license things go. I've already described how you do a search, you combine all your results into one mega list, sort by oldest, and that's a place to start. This is my opinions of my experience in the industry and what has worked to date. And so that's the gist of how that's done. And the sites, the search engines that are at the sort of the top of the pile to use, in my opinions, are 3DMDB, Yegi, STL Finder, Google, and the internet. As I said, combine all results, sort by oldest first, and that's your place to start. And so you've got your those pieces of information of the genuine article, of the genuine thing, and then you go to the host with the offending thing, and then you submit the actual information, which is the genuine license link, so that the host site can go there and confirm what you're saying is correct and true. And if they were to do that same search as I just did, they would be able to clearly and easily determine that the one that you've sent them is indeed, in fact, genuine enough that they believe that it is correctly preceding the one that you're complaining about. Because this is something that happens in the 3D printing community, is that people will look at something, they won't understand it, and so they'll complain or click a button because it's just a click on a screen to them, and that's someone's business or thing ownership, and there could be jobs riding on it and potentially millions of dollars of investment. There could be global manufacturers there behind that small little tiny little license that may only have a word or two, you know. So it's important to get it right and to not complain willy-nilly, because people's livelihoods rely on these licenses that look so insignificant, because they are free to get, but in reality, things aren't free. It costs a lot of money and a lot of years to understand the machines, the technology, the software, you know, to get all these little intricacies correct, to learn all the little secret handshakes that no one's ever discovered before, so you can get that file to perform a certain task quickly or whatever it is, by putting a little square in the corner somewhere and, you know, having it high feed rate or something like that, so you're actually performing a task in a shortcut. Or in the picture, it just looks like some random set of squares that doesn't make sense to the noob who's looking at it. So this is why I'm saying this. Don't complain willy-nilly, because that's not fair use in the business adult sector. This is adult business situations. And, you know, who are these owners? Well, there's 30 million ballpark licensed things in the internet and climbing. And the owners can be anybody. The elderly can be owners. And so, you know, their food money, their rent money, their medical money, their time with loved ones that they can't just buy back. Because when stuff like that goes and stuff ends, you can't get it back. You can't buy it back. So it's important not to complain or attack or damage people's thing licenses in the internet, because it is important. And we should operate in a respectful adult way. Okay, wishing you nice success and to be well. Thank you. Okay, further to the takedowns obviously there's a variation of reasons about why something can be taken down, and um, the idea that the title is the one and only reason, or that the date under it is the one and only reason, was quickly pulled into question, of course, by the very quickly thinking entrepreneurs who were, looking at how they could take one more step forward, And so situations arose where the same title but for something else. And so this is where the level of complexity of sort of the rules of the law come in, and also community expectation about how they believe it should play out, and to sort of work through it logically. For example, there was a situation where a person had got something ahead of me, and ahead of the rest of the group, and they'd clearly figured out something that the rest of us couldn't understand, and that doesn't happen often, and so from that point of view, of course, we were all looking at what they had achieved and thinking, is that going to fly? How does it fly if it's still flying? And then over a period of time, clearly it was flying, and so so my point being is that over a period of time, once the complexity had been comprehended, that I was able to get on the board with an understanding about that. If I'm faced with having to negotiate for the position, that I have the understanding about its ability to stand up versus not. And so, and this all generally takes place at point of upload, where the host site, they may request, explain what it is or something like that. Could be anything. So, so the complexities of the what would you call it? The description start to come into play. The model is less so in some ways. In some ways, the it sort of generally it's the title first, then the upload date of creation, and then at that point, you can glance to the license and see, is it non-commercial, meaning it's owned, and of course there'll be a bunch of. Then it's moving to the description, really. Now the description, I've always sort of made the opinion that it's a nice idea to put as much in there as you can, even details that are listed in the website outside of that description on the same web page. My reckoning back in the day is that in the future, which is sort of around now, that there'll be more Autobots, and that they will be able to read through the descriptions fast, and it will make the sorting of what's going on, and who does the royalty go to, whose business am I purchasing, or whatever it might be. So hang on. So someone had achieved something, and then once the other entrepreneurs started to sort of get to grips with what had happened and how they'd sort of found their avenue of landing to the position and getting that position and what was achievable, everyone sort of rode the elevator to that level of the situation, and it was the sort of a modern gold rush, as it were, to look at how this is of any use or benefit to anybody or us, and clearly it was an interesting thing. And so a position was found further down the chain where their original file didn't perform that operation, or that the thing was actually, as you went down through the detail, it was clear and obvious that the thing was actually like a separation of the thing, and so it was a separate thing, as it were, so it wasn't a copy of the first thing. For example, there was someone who did a bottle and then someone who did a can, for example, and clearly the two were quite different. And so the distinction would quickly fall into the description for enough relevance of detail to enable, like, let's say, an AI bot looking through it from the future, which is the future is around this time, that as the searchers get more in depth and they start looking through how to figure out the sort order of things to make sense of it all, is that it would become obviously clear and apparent that it clearly shows that it is a different thing. It's got nothing to do with the other thing, really. And so it's actually like a different thing. And so it is a different thing. It's a different thing at that point, even though initially, at face value, the two things are listed next to each other in apparent conflict at face value. But this is just it. At face value isn't always the full story. This is why it's a bit of an endeavour to go right through each conflict there, if you like, if you want to call it that, or potential conflict, you should say, I should possibly say, and go through and look at further in-depth analysis of what actually are the two positions there if I'm faced with two positions. Because if one of them is clearly completely different from the other, and they're nothing to do with each other, and neither of them are, and that, in a way, what it comes down to is that the one way to sort of see this whole situation is to imagine like a Star Trek future where someone walks up to the machine, they know nothing about it. This is the way to look at it from the public person who's never seen a printer. They don't know nothing about it. It's a completely newbie. He's fresh off the boat, just arrived from somewhere far away, doesn't know anything about them. Walks up to this magic hole in the wall, and he's like, what does this do? And someone says, you just tell it what you want, and it'll attempt to manufacture the item for you and give you a price to do it. This type of an idea. And it might even, there might even be other terms. It could be free. We'll just have to have a look to see what the situation is. And so this person would look at this machine, and whatever it is that comes out of their mouth or that they type, the machine will go through the sort order and bam, there it is, just like that. And so this is like the, this is sort of the Star Trek thing of the replicator. And and so therefore, this is how the complexities can arise, is like, especially when attempting to figure out which license precedes another, or which is genuine, which is original, which you can take down. Which one of these two has to come down, if either of them have to come down, because both of them could potentially stand, given further analysis of the two positions. And unless there's like, often what's been the case with the net is, unless there's an issue between them, or over them, or because of them, then it's like it's often just operated and continued. If one is clearly in breach and just doing the same thing under the same name, but they change the model, let's say, that's not enough. Changing them, because to modify a thing isn't enough, unfortunately. Which is interesting with the model, because you'd think that this would fall into the description, but in a way, within the context of the overall thing, if the thing is so different, like with the food example, if it's completely so different, such a different sector, it gives it that much of a gap that the distinction is clear and obvious. And so this makes this sort of decision making that much easier. And so in the context of taking things down or whatever, it does take a bit of analysis to figure it out. And this is possibly why it's, and also lack of information about, what the latest entrepreneur has figured out how to do, and what does the strange set of cubes on the screen have to do with the model that they've indicated that it is, and what form of computer trickery is going on there that somehow this configuration produces the outcome that's required. But this is it. When you don't know, you don't know, and complaining about it isn't the way to approach it. It's more about understanding what it is. If you're a newbie, of course, you just work your way up to sort of from the very start, at the very beginning, and work out all these interesting configurations. Hang on. And for hosts, it's virtually the same thing. It's like you've got to go slow and steady. This is why hosts often don't rush straight into doing things like migrating things in from outside websites, or enabling the transfer of a thing where they are requested by an owner to date match a thing. Because it takes time to build up enough skills and dealing with complex things and licenses about what they are and what they mean to people, and how much money is going into some of these things. Now, I'm seeing people put millions of dollars into the background of some of these licenses that have such a small title as being one-word titles, millions of dollars. And so it's like the money is changing hands. I'm saying that this is, globally, as I said, there's like 10 million printers got sold into one country in a year. It's a very big set of chain stores, if you like, because every single printer, private use, commercial use, or otherwise, can be under the sort of the rule of a single license. And the license itself might look real small on paper and not have that many words in it, and you think it doesn't look like much there or sitting there on paper. But it's like that doesn't reflect anything like what the background value going on relating to what that little piece of typing on a screen is about. And, none of that gets shown on the screen. This is a big thing. People, underestimate, or they don't look beyond that initial picture on a screen. They see some square floating in the sky that's like, doesn't look like it's doing much. And it's like, yeah, but that doesn't tell you that that's machine instructions with the background to feed rate at an extreme rate from that location to a different location at a certain point in time and whatever. And that, this one works, the other one doesn't, because the other one is required to do something different, that it can't perform this whatever. And so the complexities can build up on you. So I just think that people wanting to take things down need to take their time and build their way up into understanding the intricacies of the 3D printing sector and other sectors, because CNC milling, laser cutting, whatever your thing is. And then with the hosts is to honourable fair play and try and stay on top of it, and take your time implementing new services as well, because it impacts people greatly. And like when they get caught up with distractions of dealing with silliness, and a lot of the sites are really good with notifying the owners that a certain event has happened and it's par for course, we're going to look at it, but we already know that they haven't supplied any reasoning that is really relevant, and it's a real newbie sounding complaint. They haven't provided an upload date and a link showing the real owner or anything like that, within a 3D printing license sector, because the 3D printing is a different thing. It's like a thing 3D printed is different than a thing manufactured in a different way, because it's not that's not what it's how it's done. It's like it's something else. And so again with the complexities. Okay. So there you have it. So just don't rush to take things down unless you've sort of, looked very carefully, thought through it, gone through all the procedures and that I've given opinion on, and, be clear that you've worked your way up to giving those opinions, because just wading in after a couple of months on stuff that the other person has clearly been on for years and years and years, there's obviously a reason that those positions have held. And, especially when those positions can be like auctioned off at other sites external from the host sites. So, and the external sites, can be large auction sites. And so, everyone is endeavoring with all their teams of lawyers to all get this correct. And it's like we've all got to try and play our part to endeavor to function adequately, as somebody may have said once, and get it right for everybody. And it's like, it is difficult and complex, and everyone is trying to do their best to make it work out well. And I sort of have the goal of nice success, which has its own little simple logic built in. So I wish you all nice success and to be well. Okay, thank you.